Hello BookTube, welcome back to my channel and welcome back for another Mish-Mash. This is one of my favorite videos to make lately because it happens to be I can talk about whatever comes to mind and whatever I feel like over the course of the video. In general, they tend to be long and rambly, which if you love that, then stay tuned. You're going to get a great delight. If you don't like that, then I apologize in advance. I try to hit the most important things at the very beginning. And one thing that I'm going to try to do starting this week and going forward with every Mish-Mash is to give a shout out to a channel that I feel deserves some recognition, deserves some attention, uh, regardless of current subscriber count. So they aren't all going to be small channels, but in this case, it is a small channel that I've been subscribed to for a couple of months now and have thoroughly enjoyed. And the channel is RK Stumbling Bear. I had a buddy read with her back in Space Opera September. We read Velocity Weapon by Megan O'Keefe and had a really good time with it. I haven't gotten back around to that series because obviously on BookTube other plans take place. But I really enjoyed that, and I enjoy her content on her channel, and I feel like she should have far more subscribers than she currently does because she makes some great, thoughtful videos. So I'm going to have her link down below in the description at the very top of it. So go check her channel out, especially if you like science fiction and fantasy or like hearing people talk about science fiction and fantasy, because she's got a fantastic channel. And I would hate for you to miss it because it's just wonderful. So we'll see how much stuff I get through today. I've got a lot planned in my mind. And I've got one child sleeping and the other currently playing like a madman with all of his new stuff from Christmas and enjoying that. And hopefully I'm able to get through a lot of stuff before she wakes up or before he stops being self-entertained. So yeah, let's just dive right in. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is to serve as a follow-up to my ideal bookshelf. So Friday, Christmas Eve, I revealed my next ideal bookshelf, which was Fantasy Edition. And I promised that on Sunday I would talk about some of the series that I want to get around to reading that didn't make the list because I either have not read anything of it or I haven't read enough of it to know whether or not it would make the cut. And so I've got a good chunk of series here. I'm not going to go into long descriptions of any of them because this is going to be a long enough video as it is. But to give you an idea of some of the ones I've been wanting to get around to, but just haven't had a chance yet, and could potentially, depending on how much I enjoy them, end up making the cut on that ideal bookshelf list for fantasy. So we'll start with The Chronicles of the Black Company by Glenn Cook, Chronicles of Thomas Covenant by Stephen Donaldson. I have the first book of that on my shelf, so I have fewer excuses in getting around to that. And I know Michael K. Vaughan has a copy and has not read that series yet, so maybe that'll be a motivation for both of us to try to get one book off of our 100-book challenge and read that together at some point in time in 2022. The Crown of Stars series by Kate Elliott. I've heard a lot of really, really good things about Kate Elliott lately. And it's an author that I have not read anything by. And so why not start with a great fantasy series? The Dagger and Coin series by Daniel Abraham. The Dark Tower series by Stephen King. I read The Gunslinger last year. Didn't enjoy it much, but I've seen multiple people this year reading through the Dark Tower series and all vouching that book 2, it just takes off and gets really, really good. So don't let the disappointment almost of book 1 keep you from moving on in the series. And so I will do that at some point in time. I haven't yet because again, book 2, things happen, things get in the way. But it is a series I plan to return to, and if book 2 doesn't do it for me either, then I'll simply just write off that series as not being for me. The Deed of Hectonarian by Elizabeth Moon. It's an author that I've enjoyed one of her sci-fi books long time ago. And so I would love to check out her fantasy series. First Law series by Joe Abercrombie. A lot of people this year have talked about that, and I definitely need to be reading that. The Final Var Tapestry by Guy Gavriel Kay. I had my first experience with Guy Gavriel Kay this year, was kind of disappointed, but maybe this will redeem him. If not, then maybe I'll be moving on from Guy Gavriel Kay, because there's plenty of authors out there. No sense in wasting time revisiting one that has not held up for you. Gormenghast series by Mervyn Peake. King Killer Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss. Yes, I know. I might be the last person on earth to read that series. It's okay. I've got a copy of the first book on my shelf I've got to read. So I have few excuses remain because I can at least start it. The Long Price Quartet by Daniel Abraham. If you watch The Library of Alexandria, you hear that one being praised far and wide. And so, of course, it's on my list because of that. Malazan Book of the Fallen by Stephen Erickson. Between Philip Chase and Joanna, I have all the reason in the world to believe that this is going to be a wonderful experience. So I've got the first book on my shelf. Picked that up a couple months ago. So again, I have few excuses other than time commitments to start this. Memory, Sorrow, and Thorns series by Tad Williams. I haven't read Tad Williams at all yet. And I've got the first book of that thanks to Beth Ann. She sent that to me back in the middle of summer, beginning of summer. It's been a long time. I did read Hyperion that she sent me, but I also have Shadows of the Gods by John Gwynne, which I haven't read any John Gwynne, and he should probably be on this list, but I didn't think to put him on this list. But that would be another one that would definitely make the list. Powder Mage series by Brian McClellan, and then the Rift War Cycle by Raymond Feist. To kind of round out some of the fantasy series that I've kind of targeted as ones I definitely want to get to and try, at least the first book in, to see if it's one that I want to continue. And yeah, lots of fantasy out there, lots of good fantasy out there. I follow a decent number of fantasy booktubers, so that list can grow and get wildly out of control if I would let it. And I've kind of tried to temper my expectations and keep it manageable. Some of those being ones that I've wanted to get around to for quite some time and just haven't had a chance yet. So, the next order of business, I'm going to reveal where I'm at on the 100 book challenge. So this is the challenge by the evil mastermind Criminali to read 100 books that you own before you buy yourself new books. And like many of the booktubers, there's a couple of caveats, a couple of outs. One being gifts that you receive do not count against that book ban. And by that extension, a gift card to a bookstore or something along those lines, or a gift card to somewhere and then encouragement to use it to buy yourself books that you didn't get would be qualification to make some purchases. And anything that is coming up for a read along that I don't have, that I can't easily access, that I would want to have on my shelf, would have permission for that. I've got a couple of those coming up where I'm probably not going to buy the book yet, even though I know I probably would enjoy, for instance, getting the complete poetry of John Keats. I was sorely tempted to pick up a volume of that, but I do know I've got a local library that has the complete poetry of John Keats, so I'm going to just go the thrifty route and check that out for my poetry reading in January, along with Aaron Facer. And yeah, let's just get to it. So last time we talked, it was about 2 weeks ago, and I had completed 8. The last one being The Consuming Fire by John Scalzi, which I absolutely loved. And I'm kind of disappointed that I still haven't had a chance to start book 3 of that, but there's reasons. But you can see now, there are 4 more books on here. So in the last 2 weeks, I have finished Elric of Melniboné by Michael Moorcock. That was my first Elric experience, and I think my first Michael Moorcock. It was enjoyable. I did very much enjoy it. I don't think I'm going to continue with Elric because there's just too many things to read right now, and that was the only Elric I had. But I did very much enjoy it. But even more so, I, Robot by Isaac Asimov was the next book I completed, and oh my gosh, I forgot how much I love Asimov's writing. How has it taken me so long to get back to Asimov? It's been over a decade, probably, since I read I, Robot and the Foundation trilogy. And now I'm hungry to get back into Asimov. And thankfully, I've got Caves of Steel and a couple other books in the Robot series, as well as the first couple of books in the Foundation series, not the prequels, but the main trilogy, to where I can just dive back into Asimov. And I might do that once I free up and finish some of these series that I'm in the middle of. Then we have the shortest book on the list so far, Student's Guide to Chaucer's Middle English by Peter Beadler. It was about 54 pages, just kind of a brief grammatical introduction and with a little bit of pronunciation help on Middle English used by Chaucer. It was a good thing to knock out quickly, to feel like I was making good progress towards this 100-book challenge, as well as to prep myself for Chaucer next year. And then last, I finished yesterday, Lyrical Ballads, the 1798 version by William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge, which was unremarkable by and large as a volume of poetry. The highlights being, of course, the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, Tintern Abbey, and then the Lines Written Upon Poems, the ones that have that as the title by Wordsworth, were the standouts by far. And then the Expostulation and Reply, which I did a Poetry Thursday on for a month or two ago, before even picking up that volume, not knowing it was in there. But that was one that I really enjoyed as well. And I think Aaron and then Alice from Alice in the Giant Bookshelf, all three of us kind of landed on this was just an okay volume of poetry. But then at the very end, it has the preface to the Lyrical Ballads, which Wordsworth started including in 1800 and 1802 when he republished and expanded them. And going through and reading the thought process behind what they were trying to do and the purpose of the collection, and really what lays the groundwork for the movement of the Romantics as a whole, is absolutely worthwhile reading, because it is great, and it didn't heighten my appreciation of the poems themselves, but it heightened my appreciation for the collection as a whole, as a experimental attempt to do something new that eventually would become groundbreaking for poetry. So there we have it. I am 12 books in. I have 2 more that I will for sure be finishing this year. I've got a couple of chapters left of The Hobbit, and I've got a couple of books left of the Iliad, both of which should be finished before the end of this month. So I feel good about getting to 14. I may even get to 15 if I really blast through the poems of Catullus, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. So I feel like that's a good pace, especially since I'm not intentionally choosing the shortest books on my list, like Greg from Another Bibliophile Reads, or just a whole bunch of really fun and fast reads, because I've got plenty of those vintage sci-fis that are 200 pages long, that are really quick reads that I could just binge read. But I'm not letting the challenge shape how I'm choosing the books I'm going to read. And I feel like I'm going to enjoy the experience a lot more because of it. But we do have a book haul here, and this is a perfectly legal book haul, because this is all Christmas gifts, plus a haul of a very, very delayed shipment that I purchased off of eBay right as the book buying ban started. I made one final hat in the ring kind of throw on an eBay auction, put in a submission for under the asking price, and had it accepted. And you'll see why I threw that one in, because I needed to secure some things before the book buying ban started. But we'll do that part last. So the very first thing, I'm going to talk about the stuff that I got from my family. So my wife and my kids got me some great gifts that I thoroughly am going to enjoy. So I've got a desk calendar here, the Lord of Trivia, the ultimate Middle-earth fan challenge daily calendar. So I'm looking forward to having a little bit of trivia each and every day. The real star of the haul, which some of you, if you follow me on Instagram, got to see this already, is the wonderful edition of The Lord of the Rings, just in time for reading The Lord of the Rings with a whole bunch of people. I'm so happy to have that. That is an irreplaceable volume right there. And to go with that, I just got the annotated Hobbit from Tori, Hufflepuff Discovery, to give me a wonderful edition of The Hobbit on my shelf. Then I've got a wonderful edition of Lord of the Rings. And of course, my wife also got me this wonderful illustrated Silmarillion. So I've got the Holy Trinity of Tolkien works, all in wonderful volumes now on my shelf, rather than throwaway paperbacks. So I'm beyond excited for that. The Silmarillion I probably won't be rereading in 2022, since I just read it in July. But when I am ready to revisit it, I am prepared for quite the experience. And then to go with all the Tolkien stuff, I also got a Tolkien wall calendar for 2022. And the images in here are all straight out of the Silmarillion. So even before I reread the Silmarillion again, I'm going to be able to enjoy some of the artwork that's going to be in there. Such as that wonderful piece of art. Where was the other? There we go. And that one. I mean, those are wonderful. So I'm going to be excited to have double Tolkien. Maybe I'll take one of them to my desk at work and hang the other one up back behind me on the wall. So my daughter picked out. I think my wife picked this out because she thought it was cool and wanted an excuse, because I scolded her for that, because I wasn't told that we were supposed to have her buy for us. So she used it as an excuse to pick up this wonderful volume by Brian Wood. This is Northlanders Volume 1, the Anglo-Saxon Saga. So this is a graphic novel of Anglo-Saxon. I mean, it is going to be wonderful. I mean, it's got some great artwork in here. And when I get through my volume of Conan that I'm working through, I've got a X-Men volume sitting in the wings, but as soon as I finish the two of those, I'll be jumping into this, because I'm excited to get into that. I didn't even know that existed. And then the last, well, okay, so before we get to that, I got one board game related thing. I got this scratch-off poster of the top 100 board games. And so as you play them, it's got a little scratch-off tool. And so you'll scratch it off, and it's got a special image underneath each of them. And so I told my wife, because she got me this, I said, okay, so you're going to commit. You're going to play each and every one of these with me, right? And I think she instantly regretted that decision, but she has agreed, I believe, to play each and every one of them with me. So I'll be reaching out to my network of friends here locally to try to borrow some of them as we need them, to not have to buy all 100 of these. But we've got a fair number of them already on our shelf, and I'm looking forward to that experience with her, just being able to work through that list with the two of us. And then my son got me some things. So he picked out a couple of comic books for me. This is Chewbacca comic book. And the Indestructible Hulk. No surprise, he likes Star Wars and Marvel superheroes. He picked out a Ray Bradbury for me. This is From the Dust Returned, which sounds absolutely interesting. I read the little inside blurb on it after I opened it, because I hadn't heard this one yet. and I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic, which comes as no surprise. I'm loving the experience of reading Ray Bradbury. And then he also got me a bookmark. So he picked out a peacock bookmark, and peacock, I think, is unofficially his favorite animal. It's definitely his favorite bird. And so I've got a special bookmark just for me. And then the next haul here came from her family. We had Christmas with them last night. So I got another game poster, this one from Watch It Played, which is a YouTube channel where they teach you how to play games. And so he selected 40 games where he's taught the games over the 10 years he's been doing this. And so it's a similar thing. It's a scratch-off poster of 40 games. So we've got a friend that usually comes over once every week or two on Sundays, and we play games. And so we're going to try to propose to him to have the three of us work through those 40 games. So that'll be fun to do too. I got some books. This was all a bundle here, but the timing is perfect for it because it is Wordsworth Classics of the Three Musketeers. 20 years after. The Man in the Iron Mask. And then The Count of Monte Cristo. So that is a wonderful addition to my collection. I had not picked back up any Dumas. And with the reading of 3 of those with Tony, plus 2 additional volumes by Dumas, I'm now set to be able to start in on that. It'll be May before I need the next books. And so that gets me a great start on what I need to do. And then they got me a board game as well, Beyond the Sun, which is a kind of a civilization tech tree kind of game, which I'm super excited about. Fits right in with my sci-fi mood in reading because it's been fantastic. And then we have the eBay haul here that was very delayed in its shipment, but I wanted to make sure I covered because it is wonderful here. So we've got Ray Bradbury, Dandelion Wine. Ray Bradbury, Long After Midnight. Ray Bradbury, Timeless Stories for Today and Tomorrow. Ray Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451, which I'm going to gift this away to somebody in my Bible study who is a bit of a reader and has never read this. I was talking to him about it just this last week, and I knew this was coming. So I told him I had an extra copy, so I'm going to give that to him. We got Block and Bradbury. So this is 2 of the finest writers, sci-fi and horror, team up to give you this fantastic, frightening, fantabulous book. So I don't even know, is this one story? Is it? Okay, so it's some short stories. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4 from Bradbury in here. None of which from the titles that I think I've read. So that'll be a nice, interesting combination there. 3 to the Highest Power, Bradbury, Oliver, and Sturgeon. So 3 novelettes. Let's see what the Bradbury novelette is. The Lost City of Mars. I'm excited about that. Bradbury, Martian Chronicles. Circus of Dr. Lau and Other Important Stories, edited by Ray Bradbury. Let's see, does he have a volume in here? This is by far the worst condition book. It is clearly falling apart here. Oh, it's got E.B. White and Roald Dahl in here. Nathaniel Hawthorne. That's interesting. An introduction by Bradbury, but no stories by Ray. That's okay. This will be interesting. It says, with this famous novelette setting the mood, the celebrated science fiction author Ray Bradbury has selected 11 other imaginative stories by first-rate writers such as E.B. White, Roald Dahl, and Shirley Jackson to make a rich, exciting collection. Here the reader will get a taste of the offbeat, the unusual, the flavor of the unknown worlds, and the excitement of our own world seen in new dimensions. And this is obviously one that maybe I'll find a page or 2 for my little junk journal, because this one's probably going to hit the recycling after it's been read. Ray Bradbury, Golden Apples of the Sun. Are you sensing a theme yet? Ray Bradbury, The Toynbee Convector. Ray Bradbury, Something Wicked This Way Comes. Ray Bradbury, One More for the Road. Ray Bradbury, I Sing the Body Electric. Ray Bradbury, R is for Rocket. Ray Bradbury, Quicker Than the Eye. I got all of those for about $1 a book. And so I couldn't pass that opportunity up. I'd hoped it would have gotten here a lot sooner, but I'm now set on Ray Bradbury for 2022. In theory, I've got one other already on my shelf, S is for Space, that I have not read yet. So I think that gives me more than one a month that I can be reading without veering off from that list. So I'm very happy to have all that Ray Bradbury. So let's move on to other things. The next thing I want to talk about is Steve Donoghue and his shameful act of being wrong about something. In his breakfast book tag, he goes on a rant about audiobooks. I wanted to quote for you what he says, because I want to address this. He says, and I quote, "Audiobooks aren't reading. Reading is silently reading words on a page. Audiobooks are listening to someone read you those words at their own pace, with their own intonations, with their own stresses on the words, their own ideas on how everything is read. All of those decisions on how to receive what you are reading with your eyes are taken out of your hands when you listen to an audiobook. That is done for you by someone else. And some other person reading an audiobook of that same book would give you a different experience. You can't really say that's reading, right?" And it is the very end, right there, where he veers into trouble. You can't really say that's reading, right? Steve, you have valid points in there, apart from your very first and your very last sentence in there that you said. Yes, audiobooks are a different experience. Yes, the narrator or narrators give you their tone, their inflection, their voice that shapes some of how you experience what is in that book. But it still is experiencing the book. Just because it's in a different way than how you traditionally would think of reading does not make it less valid. Don't gatekeep on reading, Steve. You have a massive channel. You have a great following. You do wonderful things for this community. But that right there is gatekeeping. That is shaming other people who maybe what they are able to do, because they have so many things pulling at their time that all they can do is to throw on an audiobook while they're driving. I've been at that point in my life where that was all the reading that I could get in, was listening to audiobooks to and from work. The issues you raise about how the narrator reading it to you is shaping your experience, is giving you their interpretation, their impression of it. Is that not the same thing as what a translator does for works like Ovid's Metamorphoses, your favorite book of all time? Is that not the same thing that you get out of a translation? Are you going to then say that you haven't read Ovid's Metamorphoses unless you've read it in its original language without the use of a translation? Where do you draw that line? If audiobooks, by this definition that you give, that it shapes what you experience, so it's not reading, then are you going to dismiss all of these works? I've got Alexandre Dumas. I can't read the French. So are you going to tell me that I'm not going to actually be reading The Three Musketeers because I'm reading a translation of it? That's ludicrous. You wouldn't say that. So why is it different for audiobooks? It shouldn't be, because it's not. Yes, it's a different experience, but it's not like they go to a website out there that gives you a one-page synopsis of the book and that somebody is saying, yeah, I read that book, man. When you're listening to the audiobook, as long as it's not an abridged adaptation, which they do have some of those out there, or a dramatic interpretation where it's greatly shortened, as long as it's not one of those, you're still getting the full experience. You are still going along for the entirety of the story that's being told and all of that's being said on the page. Just because it's taken in a different format than sitting there quietly. Not everybody has the reading speed or the reading conditions that you do, Steve. Don't gatekeep us. Don't do that. Now that that's out of the way, we'll end this with a happier note. On December 31st, you can look forward to counting down my top 10 reads of 2021. I'm going to have two lists. I'm going to have my top 10 rereads and my top 10 new reads for 2021. They are not going to be 2021 releases. So if that's what you're looking for, that won't be the video for you. But I'm going to do a live probably around 8:30 p.m. Central Time as a kind of a guidepost. Because by that point in time, I should have both kids in bed. My wife works till 10 that night. So I figured what better way to end the year than with a little live video where I just talk about 20 books that I read in 2021. Maybe I'll do 21 books. I'll add one extra on one of those two lists. Probably the new to me reads. But I decided I needed to do two lists because otherwise it would be dominated by a lot of those rereads, because I've reread some fantastic books: The Silmarillion, The Hobbit, Martian Chronicles, Fahrenheit 451, Beowulf. I mean, I've had some fantastic rereads. The Illustrated Man, I, Robot. So it wouldn't be fair to the new reads to go up against that. It would be less exciting to give a list that was just the books that have been reread. But they are some fantastic ones, some of my absolute favorites. So you can look forward to that. I'll try to get a little reminder set up ahead of time so that you know it'll be. If you can join me for it, great. Love to have you. If you can't, no big deal. It'll still be accessible afterwards. So, but if you want to chat about it, chime in on the books as I'm reading through and talking about the books I read, you're certainly welcome to do so. And then the other thing I want to announce is that early in January, I'm going to do a Q&A as a celebration of getting my books back out to the public. So I've in 2021, I re-released Monster Huntress just a couple weeks ago. And then earlier in the year, I compiled all of the short stories and stuff that had been previously published years ago and are no longer accessible into a volume, A Merchant in Orient and Other Tales. And so to celebrate both of those being out, and hopefully by that point in time, also being out in paperback, I'm going to do a Q&A. So leave your questions here. I'll make another video probably later this week that is solely for the Q&A. So you can leave them in either place, and I'll be compiling those questions. They can be about books, they can be about writing in general, they can be about reading, they can be about me, whatever you want to ask. I will put those in and do a Q&A video, probably not live, but we'll see. Maybe we'll do a live one. But I'll go through and I'll answer those questions for you. So that is, I think, all I really wanted to make sure I got to today. So I'll just end this with another reminder. Go check out RK Stumbling Bears channel because it's a fantastic channel. It's definitely worth checking out. And I hope you had a wonderful Christmas and that you have a great weekend. Thank you, BookTube.